The Bible isn't just stories of love and miracles. Some scenes are so brutal, they may make your stomach turn. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 most harrowing deaths in Scripture, starting with some famous deaths and ending with some that are bone-chilling. Prepare to be stunned and wait till you see number 1. Let's dive in. At number 10, we have Goliath, a legendary story we all know. David, just a young shepherd armed with a sling, faced off against the giant Philistine warrior Goliath. In 1 Samuel 17:49, we read that David took a stone, slung it, and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. Usually the story ends there, but David didn't stop there. Verse 51 says he grabbed Goliath's own sword and beheaded him, holding the severed head as a trophy. What a way to make a statement to the Philistines. Number 9, Absalom. Absalom was King David's son, known for trying to overthrow his dad and for his long, flowing hair. Ironically, that hair sealed his fate. During the battle to become king, 2 Samuel 18:9 says, Absalom was riding his mule, and as the mule went under the thick branches of a great oak, his head caught fast in the tree. There he hung, defenseless. After being spotted, Joab, David's commander, thrust 3 spears into Absalom's heart, followed by his 10 armor-bearers who surrounded Absalom and finished the job. A dramatic end to a tragic family conflict. Number 8, King Eglon. This story reads like it was from the game Assassin's Creed. King Eglon of Moab was oppressing Israel when Ehud, a left-handed Israelite judge, approached him under the guise of delivering a present. After delivering the gift, Ehud tells the king he has a message from God for him. After King Eglon clears the room, verse 21 says that Ehud reached with his left hand, took the sword from his right thigh and thrust it into his belly. Ehud apparently stabbed King Eglon with such force that in verse 22 it says, And the haft also went in after the blade, and the fat closed upon the blade, so that he could not draw the dagger out of his belly. And the dirt came out. Not the most distinguished end for King Eglon, dying in his own excrement with a blade buried in his belly rolls. Number 7, King Herod. Herod Agrippa had been busy persecuting the early church, executing James, the brother of John, and imprisoning Simon Peter. So one day he decides to put on his best clothes, sit on his throne, and bask in the adoration of the people, who shouted, This is the voice of a God, not of a man. But in verse 23, an angel of the Lord struck him down because he did not give God the glory, and he was eaten by worms and breathed his last. This graphic description of Herod's death serves as a stark warning against pride and blasphemy. Number 6, Ahaziah's soldiers. When King Ahaziah was rebuked by the prophet Elijah, he sent 50 men to capture him. However, Elijah called upon God for protection when the soldiers arrived to arrest him. In verse 10, Elijah says, If I am a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50. And so it did, incinerating every soldier there. The king tried again, sending another 50, and the same thing happened. So for the third group that was sent, after knowing that the last 2 contingents were burnt alive, the captain of the third group made the smart move and pleaded for mercy. Number 5, Daniel's accusers. Here's another famous story, Daniel's survival from the lion's den. However, some of the kids' books stop the story after Daniel gets out. When we read on to verse 24, it says, At the king's command, the men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and thrown into the lion's den, they, their children, and their wives. Before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Talk about a brutal reversal of fortune. Number 4, youths mocking Elisha. This story can seem like overkill, The prophet Elisha was on his way to Bethel when a group of youths mocked him, shouting, "Go up, you bald head!" In verse 24, it says he turned around, looked at them, and cursed them in the name of the Lord. Then 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. The story is hotly debated, as some may say it was an overreaction on Elisha's part. But one thing's for certain, mocking a prophet is deadly business. Number 3, Sisera. Back to the book of Judges. Sisera, a commander of King Jabin's Canaanite forces, flees after being defeated by Deborah the prophetess. He then finds himself at the tent of Heber the Kenite, who was friendly with King Jabin. Heber's wife Jael greets him and offered him hospitality, giving him milk to drink and a place to rest. But while he slept, verse 21 says, "Then Jael, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent, and took an hammer in her hand, and went softly unto him, and smote the nail into his temples, and fastened it into the ground. For he was fast asleep and weary, so he died." A shocking betrayal and a victory for Israel. Number 2, Jesus. Jesus' crucifixion stands apart from the others because of its spiritual significance. The Messiah endured a brutal scourging, as described in Matthew 27:26, where soldiers flogged him with a whip embedded with sharp objects. He was mocked, crowned with thorns, and forced to carry his cross to Golgotha. There, nails were driven into his hands and feet, and he suffered hours of agony. His death wasn't just physical. It bore the weight of humanity's sin. The details of Christ's sacrifice recounted by the Gospels should stir our hearts, and we should never take our salvation for granted. Number 1, Jezebel. Taking the top spot is the evil queen Jezebel. As the person who introduced pagan gods to her husband King Ahab, she had also racked up other sins. When Jehu comes to confront her from verse 30 onwards, he commands the people next to Jezebel, who is looking out a window, to throw her down. Her own eunuchs comply, tossing her out and onto the ground. Her blood splattered on the wall, and Jehu used horses to trample her body. Later, when they went to bury her, verse 35 says they found only her skull, feet, and hands, as the dogs had devoured the rest of her. A gruesome and humiliating end to a life of inciting evil. So, what do you think of this list? Are there any other deaths you think should have been included? Which one shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.